positive news is flowing in to the market, and at the same time the price is getting out of the long-term resistance line. It just broke above that, closed above that. That's actually a positive sign. Now, which this particular resistance line, we were actually monitoring it for a long time, and majority of the alts are getting attention. It's getting more money in, and if you look at it, it's also breaking above the resistance line. Now, if this makes higher high from here, then the fundamentals which we were observing from a long time will actually turn into the price action. When we see crypto companies are actually coming out with new projects, and at the same time the traditional industry is kind of cutting down on their projects or their options. Say for example, banks are closing credit cards and slashing credit limits. They are kind of limiting their customers' exposure to their business, right? It's not expansion, right? They're actually contracting. And at the same time, you can actually see crypto world is actually going in, gaining more exposure. So some of these information kind of pushes us to the edge to understand that this really is happening. We actually saw even from Judy Shelton talking about a global unit of account, and then we can actually see fundamentals changing in different aspects. When we see ISO 20022 and Swift, don't get confused. We have information which kind of shows you that it's gonna be so much positive for Ripple the company when everyone is actually moving into ISO 20022. And when we say that, keep this in mind, when everyone is actually moving into ISO 20022, it's going to be giving so much exposure for Ripple the company directly from 11,000 members of Swift. 11,000 financial institution is actually a huge number. Even if 10% of them uses on-demand liquidity because of the reduction of correspondent banking network, it's gonna be huge for the asset. Now, with these fundamentals, if we also go into the chart and analyze the chart based on different time frames, see, this is a daily chart, and if we look on a 3-day chart, which gives you a bit more confirmation, you can actually see that we are moving into the positive territory here in the MACD. That kind of gives you a confirmation, because at the same time the moving average, 20-day moving average, is crossing above the 50-day moving average. The price is breaking above, and it is already closed above the trendline resistance. Now we just want a confirmation that this is not a fake out like this one previously, which happened previously. So once we analyze through different charts, say for example, we'll just compare XRP, Ethereum, and how it actually acted using different indicators, and then try to illustrate the fundamental side of this one. Welcome to the Scientific Investor channel, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. Now here it actually discusses about the ISO 20022 and the wider acceptance. Now, when we actually understand Ripple, the company is already inside the ISO 20022 network or the framework, we can actually eye that Swift is delayed. Their aim is to come into the network fully by November 2022, whereas other institutions are looking at that by November 2021. So there is a gap of 1 year. Now, Ripple over the past couple of years has been making some strides into the cross-border payments industry by leveraging DLT. Now we actually knew that, right? Now DLT are said to have potential reduction in cost. It provides a lot more specification or characteristics than that which is provided by Swift using the middleman. Now the migration to ISO 222 by Swift aims to replicate this for its member institutions by ensuring standardized messages. It's just messaging platform. Your payment needs to be settled, right? Now when we actually read through that, we also will understand one thing. We'll actually go through the background first. Say for example, here it actually says in May 2020, Ripple announced it has to become a part of ISO 20022 multi-part international standard, set to replace Swift current empty messages and aimed at a single standardized approach. And to be used by all financial standard initiatives, ISO 20022 creates common language and model for payments data globally, aiming to provide high quality data and therefore high quality payments, in particular for cross-border and high value payments. Now Ripple is concentrating on cross-border low value payments as of now. Once that market is established, they will actually move on to the next one. Now, when we read this particular area, it gets really interesting. See, according to Ripple, the world is converging on a new global standard, which is ISO 20022, the interoperability setup and all. So the de facto global data standard for modern payments, which is Ripple's ISO 20022 membership, will allow customers to utilize RippleNet to access a network of global financial institutions and connect to one standardized API for all counterparty connections. So remember, once this kicks in, it's changing. The entire financial landscape is changing. In yesterday's video, we actually showed you how this change is actually coming in, and from different websites like say IMF, World Economic Forum and all, we actually pulled out data which directly shows or points the arrow towards this one. Now when they actually point their fingers towards this, they highlights the name of fintechs. Now that is in a scenario where they are talking about the great reset of the world. They are using or showing fintech is needed, right? So when we actually read the next part of this one, by adhering to the ISO 20022 standard, further validation is provided to show potential of DLT in the world of traditional finance and payments, as all financial institutions will be by 2022. So November 2022 is the mandate or the current deadline for that one. So that's stated here, have to comply with the same payment standard or mandate by 2022 November. Now, if this is to actually kick in by that time, Ripple will say Swift, a giant race is gonna have, then Swift can actually see this happening, right? They are actually coming out with their own blockchain technology, but for messaging, because Swift is always working with their messaging system plus banks settlement system, which is the Nostro Vostro account, you know that. So in order to replace that, Ripple is actually coming out with their own product, which is getting slow adoption. Now, when we say slow adoption, it's only comparing to the massive adoption scale of Swift. Now, yes, they took a long time to reach there, and Ripple is going to reach there in a short time. Now, when we look at other things which are connected to Ripple, say Polysign or IntelliJ protocol or other stuffs, we can actually see these are going to be really huge. Now, this tweet from Mikey actually shows, it kind of contradicts the previous information, because I didn't actually check much depth about Polysign previously. And here it seems that IntelliJ FX was the original name for Polysign. So if you properly understand this, the way Polysign, the custodial service for institutions, are served on the IntelliJ ILP has a great role to do. Sounds a lot like currency exchange. The XRP ledger is on Ledger Currency Exchange. Just a reminder. That's the way how Mikey actually puts it. But when we actually look at this information, his statement is kind of valid. And as we move to digital asset investor, he actually credits Roll XRP for this one. And that's also really interesting. When they look at Polysign, you can see paycheck protection programs and undisclosed investors. So when we actually look at the custodial service and paycheck protection program, we already understand that the world is actually changing, and it is changing to a new financial system. And at that time, it's actually again crediting Rule XRP, and Stuart actually points this out like this. Ripple is an internet protocol that interconnects all the world's disparate financial system to power the secure transfer of funds in any currency in real time. So then we actually know that what else are the capacity of this network, right? So this is really changing the entire system, and along with say other stuffs which are working on the XRP ledger, Polysign, say Zum banking app and other stuffs which are in this, plus the smart contract area, which is the Codius. If they interconnect everything, it's actually a connection of networks of network, which creates that kind of tipping point. Now, yes, it is taking time because the entire financial world has to come in, and that is kind of slow, I agree, but the slow and steady always wins the race. Say if we look at this one, we actually know that the Brexit is going on, the visa rules, every stuff is actually changing. And now if we concentrate on this one, it shows Ripple's new partner currency cloud granted license to keep operating across EU after Brexit. Now, that is actually a cool stuff, because here how the author puts it is like, Ripple's new partner has received license from Dutch Central Bank to store its customers' fund and conduct payments on their behalf. So it is like they are understanding the potential of this technology and it is moving forward. Now, previously we actually went through in depth based on the currency cloud partnership and how it will be playing a role, right? So these information are actually laying out a kind of a background or a shadow cloud idea that this is here just because of the partnership of Ripple, in which now you have a lot of central banks working in with the Ripple net. Say, for example, these institutions are running the validators. They already understood how this will be evolving, right? Now, some information, say, which need to be considered again and again is the aim of a global currency, right? So this is actually like Judy Shelton back in 2012. Now you know Judy Shelton where she is now, right? So it has to be kept in mind. You can have national currencies, but they all then have to be abided by the same central monetary unit of account system, which is what we need now instead of floating rates. Now, just before that, if you read this one, you can get a bit more idea. You can have an optimal currency area. If people can move across borders and trade with each other, you want a common currency. If you are going to have a global marketplace, you all have to be using same unit of account. And when we actually come into RippleNet and Ripple's use case of XRP, you can actually see this global currency account, real-time cash pooling and international bill pay. Everything is together. Now if you say competitors like IBM using Stellar network, which kind of they have the advantage of P2P payments, here Ripple also allows you to do that. But the main thing, Ripple is aiming at financial institutions, the giants like central banks, right? So when they are being successful at their aim, we actually have to understand that it is coming in. Now there is another news which kind of indirectly connect with the same message, because when we see this, say a central bank is going to migrate into ISO 20022, yes, they are late. Hopefully within 1 year they will actually migrate into that. And when they say buy Swift, keep this one in mind. Even if it is buy Swift, they are actually coming into the network where the settlement system is already enabled by RippleNet. So even if they don't want, automatically they can use their Nostro system. But as we saw in previous video, organizations are actually cutting down their risk. So automatically, if they have a lot of correspondent banking network relationships they are maintaining with the Nostro amount stored in, they would be actually cutting down on that too. And when they are cutting down on that, they can't give up on their customers. So automatically they need something to bridge that value. So that is happening here. Now, in circular signed by the Sam, Director of Banking Service Department, said in the years ahead, ISO 20022 will be de facto standard for high value payment system in reserve currencies. So keep that in mind. When we see Ripple is the kind of the pioneer in ISO standard from DLT, they are also aiming the high value payment in reserve currencies. Now, we don't know what kind of central bank digital currencies will be coming out, whether it will be a synthetic one from one nation and retail from another nation, a wholesale from another nation. We don't know. But everything when it is coming out, it will be used for the high value payments, right? Once it is digital, they need a bridge. Whether it is Ripple or XLM or XDC, any other currency, it can be used. But it has to be interoperable with each other. At that particular point, we can actually point our fingers towards the ILP. Now, it won't only be one project which will be breaking through. Now, I actually saw in Twitter like there is kind of a bad news going about Chainlink showing this is kind of a fraud and all, but at the same time, when I do my research or when we check at news or current affairs of the same project, you can actually see that they are having a lot of positive news. They're having the partnerships. So if you are interested in this particular asset, if you are investing in this asset, don't just get funded by the fundsters. They will be pushing out on any project which may have that fundamental, but they want to actually show negative stuff about that project. So don't just look on that one. South Korea is actually looking on this one. Fintech breakthrough, apps to access decentralized foreign exchange rates compiled by local banks via Chainlink integration. So that's actually a huge thing. We previously saw South Korean banks coming into RippleNet, right? So they are into blockchain. They are high on that. Now, how one firm is addressing the interoperability problem posed by FATF's travel rule. Now, this is not about Ripple, the company, it's about a different project. There is an interoperability problem because companies using different solutions are speaking different languages. Now, we actually understand that. Previously, what we talked here was about financial institutions moving into ISO 20224 financial messaging system. Now, this is something different. It's about different companies. It can be, small, medium companies or any companies. They have to actually work on the same network, right? So that area, they are actually providing a new network. CEO of Netkey, we are building translators to all the protocols. We've been already started discussing on the engagement with probably of all publicly known protocols, with some of them already been tech engagement going to. Now, the main thing I want to highlight is when we come at the bottom, there is a quote. The interoperability bridge is proprietary and there will be a charge for it, said Newton. At a high level, we are building boxes that can act as proxies or translators, speaking one language on the one side and speaking the other language at the other side, meaning interoperability layer. Now, the solution for this on a low cost is already there, which is the IntelliJ protocol. But the problem is, at that particular point, it is for financial institutions and payments, meaning payment messaging system and payment itself, the settlement. But at the same time, if you look at other type of messages, as of now, I have no information about Ripple entering into that area, but there are networks which have that ability and they are working on this one. So these kind of projects are actually having that strong fundamentals, which may actually take them much higher in terms of price, in terms of the fundamentals. So if someone is actually pushing the negative, the fudsters, don't just consider their words, just kick them away. Now from here, when we actually move into the technical side, see, this is the chart of Ethereum on a daily. And this one is the chart of XRP on a 3-day. When we actually look at this particular chart, see, we can understand that the candle is already closed and we are actually moving to the upside on a newer candle. Now that's on a 3-day chart. So if we actually move on a daily chart, you can still see that the close or the confirmation for that breakout is clear. Because why I say that? Previously, when we were trying to attempt this one, we had overhead resistance from the 200-day moving average and the long-term trend line resistance. But now, we actually surpassed the 20-day moving average and gave a continuation signal by crossing the 50-day moving average and creating this particular pattern here. Now, if you look at the same here, you can see that here, nearby the 200-day moving average and the long-term trend line resistance, we actually broke above that by giving this continuity pattern. So if we are to do the same, say after this pattern, we are to make a flag and then push up high. This is going to actually take you up high like the previous one. Say for example, from here off this bottom, as of now, we have actually moved 12% to the upside. So the chances are if we give a flag here, from there we may move 10-12%. So these moves in a daily looks smaller, right? When you look in terms of price and percentage. But you have to keep in mind, we were actually moving way below the resistance lines and have a lot of overhead resistance. So if we plot those, we can actually understand these lines which we have to surpass in order to get that kind of a bullish move is still there to 0.25. And from there, it's not like we don't have any resistance. We have a lot of resistance. If we move that here, it was a previously resistance, then turned into support. So these area have to be surpassed as well. So from current level to around 0.3, 0.35, we'll be having a lot of overhead resistance. But the bullishness which this breakout gives us is huge, because this is, say, on a daily chart, you are on volume side positive on the MACD and then positive side on this one, MACD lines and volume. So if you go into the 3-day chart, you can actually see the confirmation. It's getting into the positive territory. The volume is also in the positive side, and you are already breaking through on a 50-day bullish crossover. Now that's on a 3-day chart. If you actually zoom out and look at it on a weekly chart, you can actually see we are on the positive side for the MACD, but we are still on the negative area of MACD lines. Now, when we are getting this continuation signal, and if we are able to close this week like this one, a continuation signal, and break through a long-term resistance line, that kind of points you that it may not actually be a fake out, because if you look here previously we had that continuation pattern and we broke above the 20-day moving average and continued until the 200-day moving average. So if we are to do that here, because we broke above that, now we are getting that continuation pattern when we are breaking above the long-term trend line resistance. So if this push can actually move near to the 50-day moving average and in the next candle we can manage above that, then we can actually aim around 0.34, which is actually, as we told in the previous video, it will be around 70%, it will be around 60% of rise from the current area. Now, I don't suggest you guys use leverage, but if you're using leverage, say X2 or something, just using CFD like that, you may be actually getting the double, right? 120% in profit. But keep in mind, that's actually really risky. If the price fluctuates to the downside, you may lose your entire capital. So you have to actually consider that when you're trading that. Now, when you actually look at Ethereum on the same scale, you can actually, I'll change the chart into the real candle. So here in the Japanese candle, you can actually understand the crossover has happened here. The price actually moved above. Now the 20-day moving average is trending to the upside, right? It's actually diverted to the upside and you have room to the upside here in the MACD. If you see there, last time it went up till here after it took a breather, right? Because it had that overhead resistance which it could not break or go above, right? So as of now, if you look at that, it is coming above that and waiting for that flag position, I hope. Because it currently from this bottom here, the push actually took the price around 30% to the upside. So it may actually take a bit of breather because the bull run is not yet here. Once we start that kind of a bull run, these kind of breathers will be there where the price won't be correcting back much. But after super high pushes, it may actually come down. Now, when we say that, keep in mind, from all these duration, we were actually moving way below all these moving averages, 20-day, 50-day, 200-day. Now, we are kind of above that one. So, if we manage to break above this long-term resistance line and stay above the moving averages, then the moving average zone will be pushing us high. Say if we move into a 12-hour chart for XRP, you can actually see the same thing here. And there is a lot more bullish stuff here which shows you like the 20-day moving average crossing the 50 and then the 20 crossing the 200-day moving average, coming back and retesting there and then bouncing from there. That's kind of a bullish signal which you get on a 12-hour chart. Now, the next thing you have to monitor is if the 50-day is actually crossing the 200-day moving average. Again, that's a bullish signal. And then if it is maintaining in that area, like if you look at the last time when we were actually going through such a bull run, or okay, just consider the opposite, when we were in a bear market, we were actually like the 20-day moving average was closely following the price, then the 50, then the 200. So till the time we managed to break above the 200, we stayed below that. We couldn't actually move to the opposite direction. So in the same case, these three can act as a support line now, meaning the buyers would be interested in buying at prices when it corrects back to this range, meaning if it is actually reaching around 0.2 to 0.19 or say 0.21 to 0.2 area, buyers would be coming in to buy more. But that is the retail investor's perspective from a technical analysis point of view. If the whales don't actually want us to accumulate more, they may push the price directly to the sky from here. When I say directly to the sky, I am actually reflecting back to what happened previously in 2017. So if you actually look at that particular time, you will actually understand that what happened there was the similar thing. It just pumped above the moving averages and from there it didn't actually correct back until it made that huge profit at the first time. Now, when you consider that point from there, 1000% is actually a huge stuff. Now, when I say actually again and again, some guys are irritated. I don't know why, but it's something, it comes out like that. I'm sorry about that, but I'll try to reduce the number of times which I uses that particular terminology. If you are getting irritated by that, you can use a bomb. Anyway, so when we look at this here, if you are getting the same thing, it actually would be pumping the price so huge. And the first price pump can be like 10 times, which is say 1000%, and then a correction of 60%. So these corrections can actually push a lot of investors outside, meaning they would be thinking, no, the price is actually going down. We would be taking our profit. And that time it goes to the opposite. So if you are a real holder who can be holding, who have the nerves to hold on this duration, you would be making a lot of profit by the end of next bull wave. Now think, you already waited this long, 3.5 years, 3 years. See, if you take in from the top here or the resistance line level, it's 945 days already. So if you can't wait, you already waited till this point, and if you can't make it 1 more year or 1.5 year more where the price would be at the sky high, that's gonna be a bad news for you guys. If you have that kind of nerves of steel, it's actually cool. Now why I use nerves of steel, not to be Superman kind of thing, but this is financial industry. When you're using money, even if it is $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, it depends upon your risk appetite, right? If you can't digest that much of risk, you're so emotional about your investment, then you may not be successful. That's why we are actually coming out with the technical and fundamental things to show you guys that we are in a right asset, and if you like, you can stay in this asset. Now this from here is not actually XRP talk, it will be the SI family talk. I won't take much of a time. Guys, I actually tried doing research, a lot of research, taking a lot of time preparing bullet points, trying to make the video short, keeping it concise, filled with information compared to others. But personally what I understood is, like, from last 1 week, 2 week, or at least 3 weeks, the views are actually going down. Now if you want to validate my statement, you can just go into Scientific Investor channel, go to the videos and look at what's happening from last 20 videos. If you're actually looking at this, I'm seeing it like XRP. The value is actually increasing. I'm doing my work more and more. I'm getting subscribers, yes, but not that much, which, like, say, usually I used to get like 50, 100 subscribers a day. Now it's like 5, 10, like that, but it doesn't matter. Already, say, if we have the Scientific Investor family is like around 8,000, to be precise, around 7,794 something. So in that particular area, if only 2,000 individuals are watching, I'm not missing out. They are missing out on the real information. Because if you go and see other YouTube channels, do let me know if you see the same kind of fundamental or same kind of research and documents which is being pulled out from the publication side of different websites, say, I don't know how many of them uses Web of Science to research publications, to find out research publications and use them to educate the XRP community. So what I'm requesting you guys is just hit that like button. Don't forget that. If you saw value, please hit that like button, and if you are new here, do support the channel, hit that subscribe button. I hope at least you guys will support the channel. And there are some guys, say at least 5% of the entire Scientific Investor family, who kind of support and watch the most of our videos. And I'm really happy for that kind of support. And there are 10% of guys who actually hit the like button almost all the time. And I'm really thankful for you guys. So I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.